My name is Stella Kim, and I am a Korean American Catholic who was recently inspired to share my thoughts and experiences with the rest of the world. Um, and today, I want to share an experience where I wish I had stood up for my Catholic values instead of being shy about the other person, like judging me and like I don't know, disagreeing with me. I just ended a Zoom meeting where I met with a colleague I haven't seen in months, apparently 6 months plus. And she started off the meeting by saying, "Hey Stella, did I tell you that I'm pregnant?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, congratulations." And we spent like more than half of our meeting time talking about our pregnancy. I am My background is I'm a labor and delivery nurse. And so she knows this, and we were talking about all the stuff that comes with maternal care. And in the middle of that story, she mentioned something about Catholic guilt. And because I was afraid of her disagreeing with me, or like I didn't want her thinking I was judging her and disagreeing with her. I just said, sure, 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 and um, didn't really speak my mind. And I think sometimes that's okay, but is it okay? No, I don't know. Maybe it's a case by case thing, but as I move forward, I would love to be more grounded in my beliefs and, you know, encourage other Catholics to do the same. So to rewind, um, the situation was that she told me about her pregnancy. I congratulated her, and I know of her husband, and I know that they dated for a long time before getting married. They got married late last year, and then they found out that they were pregnant early this year, a week before going on their honeymoon. And she was telling me that whole story about like how she found out she was pregnant, um, a little bit of background, a little more background of like when they were together and all of this stuff. And during that story time, she mentioned that when she was younger, in her early 20s, she had a fear of getting pregnant, and she received like therapy for it and all that stuff. And yes, part of it was the fact that she was young in her early 20s, and in her words, she had no business getting pregnant anyways. But she said she also mentioned that part of that fear of getting pregnant was her Catholic guilt. And before today, I didn't know that she was Catholic, nor does she know that I'm Catholic. Um, and I didn't ask her directly today if she is a practicing Catholic, but judging by the things that she shared today and in the past, I'm going to guess that she doesn't or hasn't been to church in a long time. I'm just assuming. But part of that Catholic guilt story, she also shared that her dad is a deacon. Cool. Cool. I think it's cool. To her, it's probably a lot of pressure. Her dad is a deacon, and her mom, she said, is a very traditional stay at home wife, stay at home mom. And so, given that background, I can see how there probably was a lot of pressure growing up to be like that perfect cookie cutter, do everything right Catholic girl. So I can see that. The story continues on, and she shared the story of how when her boyfriend, now husband, was accepted to a university out of state, and she made the decision, still in her early 20s, mid 20s, she made the decision to go move with him out of state while he's in school. And so she called her dad to let him know that she was moving with him. And she said that the only thing he said was, "You know better than that." And he hung up, and they didn't talk for a month after that. And so she said part of the conditions for her moving was that her dad or her parents and her extended family wanted them to have a shotgun wedding, meaning they wanted my colleague and her then boyfriend to get married, to do things the right way, right? Because they were going to be living together out of state. Um, yeah. So to her, she was saying that, it doesn't, to her, it didn't make sense to like quickly do a wedding just so that they can move out of state and live together. Um, versus to me, it didn't make sense that if she wasn't ready, then maybe she shouldn't be living with him. But I didn't share this thought with her. Um, and well, yeah, okay, so that's the shock and wedding part where she thought it was ironic how they were pushing this wedding on them. And it comes down to like the holiness of the sacrament of matrimony, right? It is such a holy, beautiful union, and we place such a big value on it. And so her point of view was, if it's so special, why are we rushing it? And I guess her parents' point of, or her family's point of view was, because it's special, you have to do it before moving in. I don't know if that's making sense. I tried to organize my thoughts as much as possible, but I hope that's making sense. That both sides were understanding that the sacrament of matrimony, getting married, is an important holy thing. So they didn't have the shotgun wedding. She did move out of state without getting married. And she said when they first moved in together, they tried to keep separate rooms in the beginning. And I can't remember if she said they did that for the first month or the first few months. But after having separate rooms, they combined their beds so that it was one big, massive bed. She said it was wall to wall and it was really fun and all this stuff. And yeah, I mean, eventually they ended up staying together for, I think, a little shy of 10 years. And they ended up getting married and had a kid. And I guess in the end, it all turned out the right way. But I guess the part that I wish I can redo is the part where I didn't speak up about my Catholic thoughts. So I shared my Catholic guilt too. Right now, I am out of state. I was in a long distance relationship with my boyfriend for almost 2 years, and I wanted to give it a real go. Uh, it's a whole thing where I thought, we were only seeing each other during like, for a week at a time. And every time we saw each other, it was perfect and beautiful and it was fairy tale time. So I wanted to be closer together and see if that was just like vacation mode or if that was real life for us. So that's a whole separate thing. But I also moved out of state to be closer to my boyfriend. And one of my conditions before moving here was that I wanted to have my own space. I didn't want to move in with him. I didn't want to move in with him, and he helped me find a place to live, and he was okay with us living separately. And yeah, I shared this with her, and I also, shared my version of Catholic guilt with her too. And actually, a lot of my friends back home think that I have been living with my boyfriend since day one. And when I tell them about my living situation, they always say like, "Wait, what? Aren't you living with him?" And it's a whole thing. But Going back to like where I wish I had spoken up. Um, there was that whole thing where we understand that both parties un, understood that the sacrament of matrimony, holy sa- sacrament of holy matrimony, holy sacrament of matrimony, weddings, not weddings, marriages, like man and woman coming together, aka yes, getting married but also having a kid. They kind of go hand in hand, not always, uh, but usually. So this is hard because I know I'm not going to edit this, so it's going to be very like back and forth with me stuttering. Um, Basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is I wish I had the courage to tell her that back then in her mid 20s, before, like, I wish I had the courage to tell her that she shouldn't have moved if she wasn't ready to get married, which I know is hard in 2025 and in the society that we live in, where people, move in with their partners all the time. They break up. Um, people have Partners have sleepovers. Partners, I don't know, we do all kinds of gray area things, and we say that some things are okay and some things are not. And this is something that I struggle with too. Part of it is Catholic guilt. Part of it is, I, I guess that's a whole different thing. And bless my boyfriend for dealing with all of this. Um, and I guess it wouldn't have done anything other than make our relationship awkward if I told her, back then, I agree with your dad. You shouldn't have moved in with your boyfriend if you felt like if you weren't ready to get married. Um, I feel like there's probably a lot to unpack there, but from a Catholic's point of view, where I understand what it means to get married and have life together, start a life together, start a family together, I completely agree with her parents. And yeah, that's the part where I wish I had spoken up. Um, if I were in this situation again, I don't know how I would approach it. I haven't thought that far ahead. But depending on the relationship, if it was somebody close and somebody who knows that I am a practicing Catholic, um, I think they would understand if I tell them, if you're, and they are a practicing Catholic. If they're not, that's fine. I mean, different values, right? But because she told me that she's Catholic and Catholic family and all that, I think that's why I wish I had spoken up. Yeah. Um, I wanted to end this by saying two things. One, Father Mike Schmitz on Ascension Presents has a really great 4-part talk about the theology of the body. Theology of the body is um, a talk, like a speech, a talk that Pope John Paul II gave every Wednesdays on his little balcony about the human body, what it means to have a body, what our body is for, human relationships, and really ultimately, um, like how sex plays into all of this. And it's not a talk saying that sex is bad. Pope John Paul II talks about basically the theory, the theology meaning study of God, of the body, right? So he combines the two things. And what makes theology of the body so special is that he wasn't lecturing or talking to clergymen or nuns, or like high up there Catholic people. he was addressing lay people every Wednesdays, and he gave this talk. A big reason is because when he was I believe when he was starting to become a priest, his like thesis, dissertation, one of those, like something similar, was about, like, he did a lot of work with young adults, and young adults, sex, intimacy, relationships, all of that is involved. So he was sitting on a bunch of information about it, and so he just turned it into his personal TED Talks back when he was a pope. And so you can find the first one on YouTube, and each part is about an hour long. And I believe you have to like sign up through some sort of Ascension Presents or something dog, something bull. I can't remember the website right now, but a priest shared Theology of the Body with me, and Father Mike Schmitz actually just like summarizes it in a very easy to understand way. So that's one thing I wanted to end this video with. Theology of the Body is helping me understand why the church says you can't have sleepovers, and you can't even like cuddle in the same bed, and you shouldn't move in with your partner if you're not married. And of course, I understand, like, in 2025, that's really hard to do. And again, that's something that I struggle with too. But that's why we go to confession, so that we can do better and be better. And kind of related to that, number two, I think it's important to stay true to our traditions now. I think it's important to stay true to our traditions and values now more than ever. We live in a time when it's all about like, do what you want, live your best life. You can do anything you want to do, like, don't let anyone stop you. We live in a time like that, and we also live in a time where our divorce rates are really high. We live in a time where moving in with your partner and breaking up and casual dating and having kids without getting married, like, it's just a very different time, I think, right now, and things are changing a lot faster, drastically. And so I think, especially for young Catholics who want to stay true to their values, are having a hard time finding a community of people who feel the same way, and it's hard to find support. And so I like to think I'm a pretty modern person. I yeah, I like to think I'm a pretty modern person with modern thoughts and try to keep up with the times, but in some ways I know that I'm also super old school and traditional too. And so it's always a fine balance of like staying true to my old school values, but also trying to balance it with the changing times. I really tried to organize my thoughts as much as possible. I like jotted it down really quickly, but I still think I rambled a lot. But basically, I made this video because I lacked the courage to speak up about my Catholic values. And I will reflect on how to approach the situation better next time if a similar situation, when a similar situation arises. And I also wanted to encourage the young Catholics out there, or young, old, middle-aged, whatever, all the Catholics out there, to learn more about the theology of the body, because I had not really heard about it until a few months ago. So that's all. Maybe, yeah, I'm gonna work on organizing my thoughts better before I share. And maybe one day I'll edit these videos really cool. Okay, but anyways, that's all. Thank you. Bye.